Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name's Sarah Turner and this is Alison Campbell. We're both practice educators for Best Start from NHS Education Scotland. And so what we're doing this afternoon with you is giving you a bit of a taster session of what we have formed as a workshop for all boards in Scotland to have access to. And our workshop lasts a whole day and it's very interactive. And we wanted to give you a bit of a taste of what we actually do within the workshop. So I'm really conscious that everyone's very dispersed here, and halfway through this session I'm going to ask you to actually work together. I was wondering if those of you who are more outlying would be prepared to come a bit closer physically, so that yeah, if there's any way you could just join in with some other people, that would be great. Thank you. Sorry to move you. Thank you. So usually we would share this session, but Alison has conveniently lost her voice, which means that
just to prove it.
which means that now you're
Sarah
going
does
to
all
hear.
the work.
Yeah. So yeah. So what we're going to talk about is, this is the aims and objectives of our day. It's quite self-explanatory. The day has been very much formatted with midwives in mind, both hospital and community-based midwives, but midwives who are all going to be involved in Best Start. What we have found with the early adopter boards that we've been out to so far is that this seems to be the part of the Best Start document that midwives are most concerned about and want to spend most time on. So this seems to be the focus that we're doing with our caseload practice, that we're actually concentrating quite a lot of our time on that aspect of continuity of carer, how that actually happens in real life, and what it means for the midwives, and talking about the fears and how midwives are approaching that and how they're feeling about that. So we go through the evidence, and this is for, obviously we're live streaming this as well, and hopefully those who are watching it, this is something that is all evidence-based and you can have access to at home. The Lancet series that Mary Renfrew developed, we go through the Lancet series with the Cochrane database and Having a Baby in Scotland, and just look at the actual evidence that's behind Best Start, so that everyone is really aware of where it's come from and why we're working towards a certain way. I know this morning we had lots of evidence again presented to it, but we feel like it's really important for midwives to really take ownership of the midwifery evidence if we're going to be an evidence-based profession, to actually look at that and what it means for us in our practice. And this is also quite a difficult bit, because we're looking at what it means for women and midwives in respect to what is real life like. And I think sometimes midwives struggle to accept that life at the moment is really quite tough, because when you're faced with change, sometimes you think, I'll just keep what I've got. And so it's about looking at that again and saying, what does life feel like at the moment? And it was interesting, I've just been listening to Maureen McSherry next door talking about the midwives who are currently working within the practice in Lanarkshire, and it is about acknowledging that there does need to be changes made. So we talk about real life, what does it mean for the midwives who are doing it, and these are actually photos of the midwives in Lanarkshire. Alison went and spent a day with them and took some photos of them. So it's about how real life working is happening in Scotland at the moment. So this is the caseload management that primary midwife, buddy midwife, we heard about that this morning. There's not a one size fits all, and how you get that relational continuity is going to really depend on how your health board is rolling it out, and it won't be a case where there's just one system happening, but it's about how that can happen. We also find that real practical sessions of looking at rosters, I'll stay here. And we have invited early adopter board midwives to come and speak as well at the workshops, which always brings that human factor in, which we have had very good feedback in terms of midwives enjoying hearing from the midwives who are working in the model, what does that mean and what does it impact on them on a personal level, because actually we all know that this is not going to work unless it works for midwives, because midwives are the ones who are going to provide the care. So we really need to make sure that the midwives are on board with this, and we have midwives who are willing to take this forward, because without that our women can't have the quality of care that we want to provide. So again, it's a very interactive workshop, and the continuity counts, visual representation, we also have had very positive feedback, and you actually will all have access to this game. We call it a game, it's not a game, you don't win prizes at the end, but it's an activity. So it has very positive feedback in that it's a visual representation, and by looking at things sometimes it feels more real. So we spend a bit of time doing that, and again, if you don't have access to our workshops in that you're not on duty when we're doing them, every health board actually does have a continuity counts game now. I think they're with RCM reps, and they're also, I think they're with heads of midwifery. So hopefully every midwife in Scotland actually has access to that if they can get themselves together. They can actually do that without us, or anyone that comes to the workshop could then take that out and spend some time talking about real life situations again. And we found that a very helpful aid. We also talk about the little post-it note is we really want to bring it into the midwives world, and how does it feel? What are the current fears? And how can we work with those fears and dispel those fears to make it actually a workable model for midwives? Because there are some myths out there, and there are some really strong feelings about what it actually means for midwives. So it's about talking about them in the room in a safe space and working through. We also do some really practical things, because there are not all midwives who have been out in community or feel safe about how to keep themselves safe with lone working, and real practicalities around decision making and what that means for midwives who have always had access to the hospital and feel much more comfortable in that situation. And earlier on it was discussed about support for midwives and clinical supervision, but we also want to bring in support networks for midwives in relation to their relationships and what impact it has on their families, and how working for them might change things in their own lives. And then the tricky bit, which is the fact is we've got communication, having tricky conversations in amongst team working, and we don't have a whole day, which is what that warrants, but actually when we're working closely with each other and we're working in that kind of a way, you really rely on your midwifery colleagues, and it's really important that we have some way of working together so that we can get through those points and make it a positive area to work in. And discussing conflict resolution as well. So what have we learnt so far? We have, we've been at most of the early adopter boards now doing our workshops. We've had really, really positive feedback, and we have all our future dates that we've released until June. We've also had booked, but don't worry, we will release more. But we're having a very positive view on how to explore this for midwives to make it better as we go along. And what we have discovered is that midwives feel that they don't have the skill set sometimes to form a team. They're saying, you know, we're good clinically and we feel very comfortable with what we're currently doing, but actually this is demanding other things of us that we don't feel so comfortable with. So there's some research from Robert Gordon's on how to do first steps in forming a team. And so we're looking at developing that as part of the workshop, and also about looking at how we relate to each other in terms of who we are and who we bring ourselves to work as. And we're also in NES, we're developing other workshops to support the clinical aspects. So these are all currently either in place or about to be in place, so that we have the birth in the community alongside water birth, perineal repair, which also some midwives have expressed a desire to be more up to date with, enhanced neonatal stabilisation and transitional care in the community. Our transitional care skills, there was a slight issue with the poster, are all things that are currently being developed so that we can create a package to support midwives in this transition, which we totally accept is something that is daunting. So it's about getting across that it's not necessarily changing what we do, it's about how we do it, because ultimately it's how we do it is going to make the huge difference in the care that women are receiving in Scotland. And it's really important that we take that on board, that actually as midwives we are giving really good quality care in Scotland, but it's about taking it to the next level. And how do we do that? We change the way we're doing it, not how we're doing it. Oh, sorry. It's how we're doing it. So because this is an interactive workshop, we have developed this for anyone who's actually working with us on the streaming access. They now have access to this activity, and Alison's now going to, can we just have a show of hands who currently works or feels comfortable in hospital environments? Okay, half and half. Okay. Could you keep your hands up and make sure that there's at least one of you at each table, please? Has every table got someone with a hand up? Yeah, good. Okay, Alison's going to come round now, and she's going to give you all a piece of paper which has a scenario on it, and that scenario is for you to work through just for the next few minutes, and it's just a taster of what we would actually work with you with in the workshop. Okay, everyone. I know that was a very short but sweet taster session. Is there any team that would be willing to feedback about what they've currently had on their paper and what they've done? Anyone want to put that? Yeah, Andrea. Tell us your scenario, Andrea.
As a case-loading midwife visiting a woman at home, you enter a block of flats using the trade entry buzzer. You arrive at the first floor flat when you realise a man has followed behind you and is now hovering on the stairwell of the second floor. There is no answer at the woman's door. ... What do you do? Our first reaction was to run. But then we kind of thought about it, and you obviously have to consider your own safety first. If you have a guardian, you would pull the pin on that, and then try and exit the building as fast as you can. Get into your car, lock the doors. Try and contact the patient, because although she didn't answer the door, doesn't mean to say she's not in. It could be that the perpetrator is looking to gain access to the flat as well. or it could be that he's just the DPD man and he's lost as well. But certainly look after yourself, keep yourself safe first. And we wondered, would you confront the person? No.
Thank you. So we gave you all different, sorry.
I was just going to say, one of the things that might come up on that is if you are the caseloading midwife, you might know that she has an abusive partner.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
therefore your situation, how you deal with that will change.
Exactly. It changes, and once you've been somewhere once, then it will make a difference to how you approach things again. That was purely an exercise to encourage you to consider a different way of working in terms of where you currently have your comfort zone, and when you are doing the same work but you're doing it in a different environment, how does it make you feel, and what differences does it make to your decision making process? So, and risk assessments too. So that was just a very brief example of what we are trying to do within our education process to, as midwives, encourage you to think in a wider way. So we're hoping that through our education packages we work together in making Best Start the quality care that we want to provide for women in Scotland. And hopefully your heads midwiferys and educational leads have booked days and we can spend some more time with you. But certainly for those who currently don't have time with us, these slides will be available, and please look at the resources, because there's lots of resources available that you can start working with your teams. Thank you.
Thank you.